Look down from a broken sky, traced out by the city lights. My world from a mile high, best seat in the house tonight. Touchdown in the cold black top, hold on for the sudden stop. Breathe in the familiar shock of confusion and chaos. All those people going somewhere. Why have I never cared? Give me your eyes for just 1 second. Give me your eyes so I can see everything that I keep missing. Give me your love for humanity. Give me your arms for the broken-hearted, the ones that are far beyond my reach. Give me your heart for the ones forgotten. Give me your eyes so I can see. Yeah, 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 yeah. Step out on a busy street, I see a girl and now that's me. She does her best to smile at me, to hide what's underneath. Well, there's a man just to her right, black suit and a bright red tie, too ashamed to tell his wife he's out of work, he's buying time. All those people going somewhere. Why have I never cared? Give me your eyes for just 1 second. Give me your eyes so I can see everything that I keep missing. Give me your love for humanity. Give me your arms for the broken-hearted, the ones that are far beyond my reach. Give me your heart for the ones forgotten. Give me your eyes so I can see. Yeah, 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 yeah. I've been here a million times, a couple of million eyes just moving past me by. I swear I never thought that I was wrong, but I want a second glance, so give me a second chance to see the way you've seen the people all along. Give me your eyes for just 1 second. Give me your eyes so I can see everything that I keep missing. Give me your love for humanity. Give me your arms for the broken-hearted, the ones that are far beyond my reach. Give me your heart for the ones forgotten. Give me your eyes so I can see. Give me your eyes for just 1 second. Lord, give me your eyes so I can see everything that I keep missing. That I keep missing. Give me your arms for the broken-hearted, for the broken-hearted. Beyond my reach. Give me your heart for the ones forgotten. Lord, give me your eyes so I can see. Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I sought the Lord, and He answered me, and delivered me from every fear. Those who look on Him are radiant. They'll never be ashamed. They'll never be ashamed. This poor man cried, and the Lord heard me and saved me from my enemies. The Son of God surrounds His saints. He will deliver them. He will deliver them. Magnify the Lord with me. Come exalt His name together. Glorify the Lord with me. Come exalt His name forever. Oh, taste and see
Good evening. My name is Jason Hollinger. I'm the preaching and community minister here for the Lufkin Central Church. And I don't know about you, but it seems like the older I get, the more I see movies and TV shows getting remade one after another. And, sometimes we look back and say, man, that's such a classic. How can they remake that? And there's some of them that you look and say, okay, yeah, it's all right, and maybe sometimes the remake is better. And even sometimes in movies that have, so many sequels, and they come out with another one all these years later, and you're just like, this story again. And you start to wonder why we're still going through this. Sometimes when it comes to the Bible story, we see First and Second Samuel, First and Second Kings, First and Second Chronicles, and sometimes, especially with what we're going to look at tonight in Chronicles, an overview of both books of Chronicles, we will see and hear some things that were repeated from First and Second Samuel about David. But as is pointed out in tonight's video, there's some things that we learn about David in the book of Chronicles that we do not learn from Samuel. And so there is so much here that is important, and it just serves as a reminder is that each book of the Bible, although they are part of this greater story, each of them has its importance and has things that are offered, things that are learned, things that are read, things that are heard, that are unique in and of themselves. And so we cannot learn the true story of God and what He has desired to do among His creation without really going through and diving into Chronicles. And that's what we're going to do tonight, right after we spend this time in worship.
We will glorify the King of Kings. We will glorify the Lamb. We will glorify the Lord of Lords, who is the great I am. Lord Jehovah reigns in majesty. We will bow before His throne.
The books of 1st and 2nd Chronicles. While they're two separate books in our Bibles, that division is not original. Due to scroll length, the book was divided in two, but it was written as one book with one coherent storyline. Now, in our English Bibles, Chronicles comes after the books of Samuel and Kings, and most of Chronicles is actually repeat content from those books. And so most modern readers, when they come to Chronicles, they think, wait a minute, I just read all of this, and so they skip it. And that's a shame, because this book is really unique and important in the Bible. In the traditional Jewish ordering of the Bible, Chronicles is actually the last book because it summarizes all of the Jewish scriptures. The first word in the book is Adam, the first character at the beginning of the story, and then the last paragraph announces the return of Israel from exile. Now, we don't know who wrote this book, but we can tell from details within it, it was produced by somebody who lived a couple hundred years after the Israelites returned from the Babylonian exile. Now, for this author, Jerusalem and the temple were rebuilt some time ago, and as we learned from Ezra and Nehemiah, things were not going well. The great prophetic hope was that the city and the temple would be rebuilt, that God would come to live among his people, the Messianic king would come, and all the nations would come live under his peaceful rule, and none of that has happened. And so the author of Chronicles has reshaped these stories of David and Solomon and the kings of the past in order to provide a message of hope for the future. And we'll see that he's designed this book to emphasize two clear themes. First, the hope of the coming Messianic king, and second, the hope for a new temple. Let's just dive in and you'll see these themes all over the book. First Chronicles begins with 9 chapters of genealogies, long lists of names. And you'll read these and think that this is kind of boring, and that may be true for you, but actually they're very, very important. The author is summarizing here the whole storyline of the Old Testament by naming all of the key characters in the stories. And as he does so, he shapes the genealogies to emphasize 2 key lineages. First is the line of the promised Messianic king. So lots of space is dedicated to tracing the line of Judah that led all the way to King David, to whom the Messianic promise was given. And then from David, the author traces that line up into his own day. The other family line that receives lots of attention here is that of the priesthood, the descendants of Aaron, who, of course, served in the temple. And so right from the start, you can see the 2 main themes, the author's hope of the Messiah coming to build a new temple, and it's rooted in these ancient genealogies. Now, after that, the author moves into the stories about David, and most of these are going to be familiar to you from the book of Samuel, but again, there's some really important differences. So first of all, the author leaves out all of the negative stories about David, where he's portrayed as weak or immoral. So Saul chasing David around the desert and persecuting him, the story of David's adultery with Bathsheba and then murdering her husband, all of that is gone. And what's left are the stories that portray David as a good guy. And not only that, there's also new additional material that you won't find in the book of Samuel that shows David in a very positive light. So there's a large block of chapters where David makes preparations for the temple. He arranges resources and builders and Levites and choirs. And not only that, the author also portrays David as a Moses-like figure. God gives David plans for building the temple just as he gave plans to Moses for building the tabernacle. So why all this new material about David? The author's not trying to hide David's flaws. He knows that anybody can go read about them in the book of Samuel. Rather, he's trying to portray David as the ideal king in order to make him an image or a type of the future Messiah from the line of David. It's very similar to how Jeremiah or Ezekiel spoke of the coming Messiah as a new David. This is most clear in how the author retells the story of God's covenant promise to David in 1 Chronicles 17. When you compare this story with its parallel in 2 Samuel 7, you'll see that the author of Chronicles is highlighting that neither David, nor Solomon, nor any of the kings from his line were the Messianic king, and that when the Messiah does come, he will be a king like David. And so for this author, these stories about David from the past are what sustain his hope for the future. After David dies, we move into 2 Chronicles, which focuses on the kings that lived in Jerusalem. And again, there's lots of overlap with 1st and 2nd Kings, but there are many key differences. So the author has left out all of the stories about the kings of northern Israel, so he can just focus on the line of David. And there's lots of new material about these kings from David's line. He highlights the kings that were obedient to God, and he adds new stories about how their obedience led to success and God's blessing. But he also adds new stories about kings who were unfaithful to God. They didn't follow the Torah, they led Israel to worship idols, and these kings face horrible consequences, all leading up to Israel's exile, a mess of their own making. And so this whole section becomes a series of character studies where the author wants later generations of Israelites to learn from their family history, and so become faithful to their God and the Torah. Now, the book's conclusion is really unique too. At the very end of the book, the king of the Persians, his name's Cyrus, and he tells the Israelites that they can go back home, return from exile, rebuild the city and the temple. And he says, last line of the book, "Whoever there is among you, of all his people, may the Lord his God be with him, and let him go up." And that's how the book ends, with an incomplete sentence. Now, of course, the author knows about the first return from exile and the stories of Ezra and Nehemiah, but clearly in his view, the prophetic hopes of Israel were not fulfilled in those events. And so this incomplete ending shows that the author's hope is set on yet another return from exile, when the Messiah will finally come to rebuild the temple and restore God's people. And so the book of Chronicles, it's the final book of the Jewish scriptures. It ends by pointing forward. It calls God's people to look back in order to look ahead, because the past has become the source of hope for the future. So Chronicles concludes the Old Testament as a story in search of an ending, and that's what this book is all about.
As we continue to navigate our way throughout the Old Testament, tomorrow night we find ourselves in the book of Ezra. And I pray that these videos have been a blessing to you, and that you've learned something about each of these books that maybe you did not know before. And even as was brought up tonight, yes, in the order, the chronological order of things, we could have looked at Chronicles later, but I chose to guide ourselves as the way our Bibles lays it out, and through this Bible story, and take each of these in as they come along. And so again, I pray that you are blessed by these, and that your knowledge of who God is and what God has done and is doing in his throughout his for his people. And I just pray that this has been a blessing for you, and that you have grown from these. And so no matter what, I pray that each of you has a blessed night, that you sleep under the care and protection that God provides. God bless.
I've been a sinner and I've been a saint, little bit of both every single day.
I've been lost, but somehow I've been found. There's been some pain, there's been some regret, been some moments I could never forget. But when I look back from where I'm standing now, there's never been a moment I was not held inside your arms. And there's never been a day when you were not who you say you are. Yours forever, it don't matter what I'm walking through. Cause no matter where I'm going, there's never been a moment that I was not loved by you. Loved by you. Loved by you. You've been the rock and you've been the peace, always showing your good heart to me. My days are marked by grace I don't deserve. You've been the price I could never pay. You've been the light that has led the way. No matter where I am, oh, I am sure there's never been a moment I was not held inside your arms. And there's never been a day when you were not who you say you are. Yours forever, it don't matter what I'm walking through. Cause no matter where I'm going, there's never been a moment that I was not loved by you. Where could I go that I could wander from your sight? Where could I run and ever leave behind? You're all-consuming, heart-pursuing, grace-extending, never-ending love. Your love. And there's never been a moment, no. There's never been a moment I was not held inside your arms. There's never been a day when you were not who you say you are. Yours forever, it don't matter what I'm walking through. Cause no matter where I'm